Welcome back to lovefromaleo. My name is Tay, otherwise known as lovefromaleo. A lot of you guys have been asking me to explain or dissertate what the fire element is all about. This is the fire card. So as you can see, if you look at this card here, it's represented by the triangle. It has representation or symbolization to do with angling out your opposition. So if you look at a triangle is shaped like this, right? And so then we have three of the elements from the zodiac that are represented by the fire signs or the fire elements. And so that is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And so all of these elements make up some form of a triangle because they all work together, but they all have these opposing aspects or perspectives that kind of help them be leaders and be zestful about life. Does that make sense? If you look at different cards within tarot that represent fire energy, we have the 7 of Wands, you have the Sun card, you can have 6 of Wands, and all of these cards, what they have in common is like an enthusiasm, like some type of energetic charge that reflects warmth, that reflects action, that reflects seeing or feeling. It's all about seeing and feeling, and so that's what fire is about. You see what's actually in front of you, but you also see the bigger picture. You also see a different vision that other people may not see. And so this is why a lot of fire signs would be very action driven. You know what I'm saying? Going after their own vision and not caring about what other people think, which can also make them very sassy or make them come off kind of brass to a lot of people. Or sometimes they can be too fiery and they can burn someone. You know what I'm saying? Kind of have like this attitude that sets them back in certain forms. We have 7 of Wands that can represent the confidence factor that fire element represents. So it's kind of like having that courage. And we all know that saying, I forgot how it goes, but there's a saying where all of us feel the same emotions. It's just the people that do something different are the ones that are the courageous ones. I don't know. I forgot how it goes. But basically saying everyone feels the same things. Like everyone has the same fears for the most part. What makes you different as a hero, or what makes you confident or courageous or brave, is doing the things that most people are afraid to do. So actually doing the things that are scary. And so that's another thing that ties into fire. Fire is about creating, but it's also about destroying, because when you have the destroying, it ties in with the process of creativity, because when you have destroying, you have to create, because without one, there cannot be another. To me, fire can also represent kind of like the yin and the yang energy, only because you have to balance out the purity. You know what I'm saying? Like you can use fire to fuck shit up, or you can use fire to create and to build and sustain and maintain. So it's really about how and where you put that energy and where you focus it. And I find a lot of people who are very heavy in their fire placements, a lot of them like burn bridges, like, or they'll do things that can turn people on but turn people off at the same time. Just like if someone puts on the heat because they're cold, and then like 10 minutes later, like, oh shit, let me take off my jacket, like it's too hot. So it's like, it's a toss up. And so the essential essence of being a fire sign, if you are a fire sign, is to really learn how to balance out and when to use your fire. Like there's a difference between maintaining a fire and then building one and then putting one out. You know what I'm saying? Like there's levels to how much fire you use for anything. So I think that's essential if you are a fire sign, or if you have difficult aspects dealing with your fire in your chart. All right, so I do have some notes here because I don't know, I'm always researching stuff. But I wanted to kind of like channel first. So that was me just kind of saying off the bat what fire represents. But now I'm going to be looking at my notes here of things that I've researched, and then also things that I've just experienced while actively trying to understand the fire element, being a fire sign myself, but also just wanting to learn, more about the elements. Anyways, let me just get to the point. Fire is definitely linked to the masculine energy because it's about being assertive and putting in action. And it's also about creating. So I think a lot of people forget that fire is also tied into intuition. And intuition is not usually connected to masculine energy. So Again, with that balancing, I think that also ties into kind of how water signs are, how they can be destructive, but they are naturally feminine, whereas fire is masculine and they can still be destructive as well, but what makes them destructive is the feminine aspect. So do you see how that works together? In tarot, the wands or the staves represent the fire element. Some keywords when you hear fire that you can associate with the fire element is creativity, enthusiasm, zest, sass, warmth, activity, adventure, drive, fast-paced, I would say is a very accurate word for fire, anger, emotions, expressing, and self. I would say self. You know how they say everyone's a star? Like everyone is a star, right? Well, fire is lit. So it's like anyone who's a fire sign or anyone who has heavy placements in that, they're going to do things that make them shine, which is express themselves. And so that's another way that you can kind of tie fire element with expressing yourself. In a regular deck of cards, the suit of clubs is what represents fire. A lot of fire signs are known for having like a childlike demeanor or a childlike happiness. And I think this is because fire is about going after, and that's kind of where you start out in life. Like you have these things that you just want to do. You don't understand why, and you don't even put much thought into it, but you do it. And that's what fire is definitely about, which is, you know, one of the positive but also negative aspects, because if you are dealing with fire, you could be thinking you're having fun and you can really set some shit on fire, and then it's a totally different story. You know what I mean? Like things can just change from 0 to 100 really, really quick. That's one of the negative aspects of the fire element. When you think of fire, you should think of the future. Think of like when people way back in the day, like when they didn't have lights and stuff, like they had to use flame, you know? So someone would have like a torch and they walk in front of everyone with the horses and stuff, and that person would lead the way. So when you're thinking about fire, there's definitely an aspect of being individual or having an individuality to you, but there's different ways of showing that individuality. So for instance, Aries is cardinal fire, so they are setting trends. They're gonna be starting new things physically. Whereas if you have a Leo, they're fixed fire, so they're gonna be always going towards their own perspective of what they see for themselves, their end goal for themselves. I have a video on Leo. If you want to watch that, I'll link it on the screen. And then you have Sagittarius, where they're mutable fire, so they know when and where to put their fire, but sometimes they become too wild because they know everything is not that big of a deal. And so with that comes kind of like that loosey-goosey energy. With Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter, there's always having too much fun type of energy, like the party is lasting too long. And so those are, again, the positive and negative aspects of the signs that are tethered to the fire element. You have your sun sign and a fire sign, so Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. A lot of times there's going to be certain situations or circumstances that call you to be put on the forefront of life. Because, like I said, with having the fire element, there's always like this turning the light on. So like being the first to see something or being the first to assert yourself to something. Okay, so on a health aspect, if you are a fire sign or you're someone who has heavy aspects within your fire elements or houses, there is a need for you to balance out working and playing. If you are a fire sign, there is a big chance that you are naturally active. So unless you are doing things to inhibit that activeness, you're naturally going to be someone who's always on the move. And so you have to be very careful that you are not burning yourself out or doing things that physically don't support you. You know what I'm saying? Take that into account when you're using different techniques to get things done. So let's just go through and break down the influences that kind of rule over the zodiac signs that are fire. Let's start with Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Now, both of these cards are intense, okay? You have Aries coming from the fire, and then you have Mars here where it's like he's ready for war. So that's a very good representation of what Aries symbolizes. Obviously, this will play out differently in your chart depending on where Aries is situated. Mars represents passion. So this could be fighting, this could be loving, this could be cursing somebody out, this could be a lot of energy put into something. And so that's kind of what Aries embodies. So again, all about action, movement, starting the movement though. So Aries is like the spark, the spark of the flame. So if you imagine a match getting sparked, that's Aries. Leo as the second sign. Leo is obviously ruled by the sun, and we know that all of the planets revolve around the sun. So this is why Leos have that stereotype of feeling like everything revolves around them, because they are ruled by that influence. And so that's naturally what they feel. It doesn't mean that that's actually what's happening, but that's what they feel from their perspective as the sun, or being ruled by the sun within the solar system. That is what they feel. And so Leos can be known for having big personalities. Even if they're a quiet Leo, they make people's head turn when they walk into a room. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if they're quiet, even if they're not a good person, or if they're a bad person, doesn't matter. They're known for something. Like, Leos are always going to be in the spotlight for something, good or bad. It just depends on like how they work with that energy. And so that again is also a representation of energy, which is what fire is all about: the source, the energy, the movement, the action, the flame. And so Leo represents the flame that's created from that spark. Okay, so then we move into the last fire sign, and that's Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. And so Jupiter is all about luck. It's all about expanding. It's all about looking at the bigger picture. It's about fun. It's about happiness. It's about gifts. It rules Sagittarius. And if you know about Sagittarius people, they're usually about living their life and having their own philosophies but behind why they make the decisions that they make. If you know a lot of Sagittariuses, or if you know one, and you know that they have a very special and unique way of presenting themselves to the rest of the world, whether it's the way they laugh, whether it's their hair, whether it's always something. It's one thing, at least with the Sagittarius, that everybody will say, oh yeah, that's the person that does this, or oh yeah, this person is this way. One thing I've noticed with Sagittarius, a lot of them have very nice smiles. So I don't know if that's something that I noticed, but I feel like a lot of Sagittarius have either a nice smile or really nice hair. I don't know. It's like the way they present themselves. Not all the time is a good way, but you will always notice that about them. They have a way of standing out. So it could even be them just dyeing their hair a lot. Something about them stands out to you because they are about perceiving the world and figuring out where they stand in it. We have this Jupiter influence, this fiery element of being enthusiastic and warm about life. You know what I'm saying? So that's the energy that I want you to feel when you really start to look at what fire is as an element and how it plays into your chart, and also how it plays into how the world works. You know what I'm saying? So next time you see some fire or some flames or something, you look into how it is affecting you or affecting the things around it. And also I have other videos on candle magic and things like that. If you're interested in learning how to read flames, or if you're interested in just learning more about fire and why you're intrigued by it, I'm sure I have other videos that you can look into. So make sure you are subscribed, and make sure you like this video so you can get more content like this. And I will see you very, very soon.